the KTXD studios, this is the Texas Daily. With your host, Jeff Brady.
Welcome to the Texas Daily. It's Tuesday, November 19th. Get ready. I'm Jeff Brady. Joining us tonight in studio, we have two of the smartest, sharpest guys I have ever had the pleasure to sit down with.
Wow.
And they're both running. They're right over here running camera.
They're running late. They're running late. So,
Chris Salcedo, Gary Cogill.
Nice to see you.
You guys got the black jacket memo, I see.
We do.
sir.
We do.
Thank you.
We just relit the studio, and you guys both look fabulous.
Do we look brilliant?
Yeah.
We have the high pro glow.
Very
Okay,
nice. Very nice.
Very nice.
Yeah. We have a lot to get to.
Yes, sir.
good.
Have you noticed?
I do.
There's a lot in the show today. It's
Yeah.
jam-packed.
It is. Good show.
And we're going to talk politics,
Good
and we're
guest
going to talk
today,
a lot
yeah.
more. We have a guest who's going to talk about a brand new book, Double Down, and a lot of people may have already heard about this book or the first, I guess its predecessor,
Game Change.
2012, so presidential politics. We're going to weigh into that. We're going to wade into those waters.
Well, there is a reason why things work out the way they do, and probably a lot of it's in there.
And now we know so much more than
we
we
do.
did back then.
Yeah, that's
for sure.
Okay, well, let's get to the headlines right off the top. A student group, you may have heard about this one, controversial issue down in Austin. A student group at the University of Texas has now canceled a controversial game. The Young Conservatives of Texas had planned what they called a Catch an Illegal Immigrant game for tomorrow on campus, Wednesday. So club members would have worn signs that said illegal immigrant on them, and then other students who captured them and brought them back to the Young Conservatives recruiting table would have gotten a $25 gift certificate. That was the plan.
Wow.
Okay, the group's president says the game would have started a campus-wide discussion on illegal immigration in the state of Texas, but he says he feared retaliation from the university, so it was canceled. But you know what, guys? UT has rarely shied away from provocative topics, right, over the years.
Right.
So what happened here? Was this bad taste, or was this way beyond that?
Well,
Chris?
the guy that sponsored this was a Latino himself, and
Young conservatives.
young
That's the group.
conservative,
Right.
and he was a Latino as well. The charges from the people that were opposed to this kind of thing came out saying it was racist, to which a lot of common sense folks said, wait a minute, what is racist? What race is legal? Illegal is a status, not a race. That being that number one. But of course, the whole bounty issue here, that kind of promoted the whole vigilantism angle, which is, again, against the law.
So
they were right to try to elevate the discussion. I think they were wrong in the way they went about doing it.
Well, Gary, what about, is this a smart PR
I think
move?
it's smart
look,
to
we're all
cancel-
talking about
I think
it.
it's smart to cancel it. It's a completely dumb game. You're in college. If you want to have a discussion, have a discussion. You don't start a discussion with a really dumb game that basically profiles people. And it just doesn't make any sense. So I think it was really smart to cancel it.
Okay.
I find it, the human capacity for dumbness, for complete stupidity is just...
It never wanes.
It's universal.
Yes, that's
You can
right.
find it on every street corner.
On any campus.
Yeah,
at
and
any
you know,
time.
and we usurp ourselves. We go around things in order to do what's obvious, and the obvious thing is to have that discussion.
And maybe this will do
Have
just
the
that.
discussion.
And they addressed that too. They said, you know, if we were just going to have a panel or a discussion, nobody would come. We do this, it's got everybody
It's everywhere.
talking
So,
like us.
mission accomplished.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished. As we near the one-year anniversary now of the massacre at Sandy Hook Elementary, it might surprise a lot of Americans, particularly parents, to know that schools across the board, nationwide in this country, are becoming safer.
Can you prove that?
That's right. Well, it's according to recent findings. Pick your polling agency,
Okay.
Justice Department and the Department of Education. Gallup has probably done these polls too, but since 1992, it's not a poll.
Stats.
It's stats. It's
Stats.
statistics. Since 92, the rate of victimization has gone down by more than 50%. We're talking about public schools. Researchers say a renewed focus on bullying
Right.
and simple security measures like visitor check-in contributed to this decrease. So why, guys, why do we feel as though it could suddenly happen at any school at any time? Don't you have that sense?
Well, yeah, the mass shootings elevate these type of incidents.
The
Although
awareness?
right after Sandy Hook, I remember this, it was in the LA Times, they're not accused quite often of right-wing bias, and they pointed out the stats nationwide. point to decreased gun violence in our country over the last 10, 15, 20 years. So it comports. It actually, the numbers do back this up.
But Gary, don't you, I mean, the mood is not that. We're all feel as though we're on a hair
I don't think
trigger.
you're going to equate bullying with a mass shooting. I mean, I don't think the point level is both. I think the point level on a mass shooting is through the roof. So I'm not sure those statistics add up for me just in my head. These horrific events have been more than we've ever seen in our lifetime. And we know this. And it's not that they weren't reported before. They're horrific, and these have been big time shootings. So equating those with bullying and whether we're accommodating students or not, I think they're kind of apples and oranges. So I think the increased and horrific violence is apparently rampant in a lot of places in our country. I mean, this happens over and over. The reasons for it, I'm not really quite sure.
But the statistics are saying that's not the case.
Well,
Statistically, it's not happening over
against
and over.
bullying. I don't know if the incident, if they're counting gun incidences in school.
Well, I think the whole story was about victimization from
Any
crime,
kind of violence.
from crime, violence.
Right.
And I think what we've lost in this country is the ability to be civil to one another. I think that's what that kind of leads into what we're feeling.
Absolutely.
And as opposed to what the stats tell us.
Well, and it's like flying, being in an airplane versus driving a car. We think about these horrific crashes, and we think flying an airplane is dangerous.
Right.
Really, it's much more dangerous to get in your car.
If you follow the numbers.
Statistics.
Right.
Okay.
If you follow the numbers.
Yeah. All right. Point made. Education Secretary Arnie Duncan trying to pull his foot out of his mouth today. He's now apologizing. Yeah, this is not a pretty picture. He made some comments on Friday that he regrets now. He said, quote, some white suburban moms, end quote, are pushing back against his new guidelines for academic standards because they found out that their child isn't as brilliant as they thought. So that's what he said. Duncan's Common Core Initiative, that's the name of it, from the federal government, the administration. It seeks to establish a single set of educational standards for K through high school for math and English. Okay, not a bad idea. But would this have been okay? Here's my question. Gary, you go first.
Well,
would this have been okay if he had left out the racial remark?
Left out the word white moms?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it probably would have had a different ramification. We might not even be having this discussion.
He would just said some suburban moms don't like it.
Some parts of our culture, some parts of our, then he's going to probably have to qualify that. Pretty much an insensitive comment to make. Doesn't he want those words just right back in his mouth?
He said so. He said as much.
And then you have to qualify it, and then he'll spin it for a week, and then we'll all get over it.
And any goodwill that had been associated with this initiative now is evaporated.
But isn't it interesting in education? We are trying to pigeonhole every kid in our country to make sure to a certain standard. And it's I think it's good, and then it's also almost evil, because not every kid fits into that department, and it's a really interesting.
But you don't like
thing that we're trying to
benchmarks?
do. Well, I think benchmarks
schools?
are good. I think we're over-tested, but.
Chris, what do you think?
There was an elegant description of what Common Core is. By the way, Texas has rejected Common Core.
Texas always rejects it.
45
we
states.
reject a lot of things.
Yeah, 45 states in the country do adhere to Common Core.
Right.
But this high school student got up in defense of teachers, was applauded about a 4-minute speech, basically condemning Common Core and what it's done to education. This one-size-fits-all, government-centered approach, teaching approach, doesn't fly. It is not working, and I think what Arnie Duncan was reflexively doing was defending, again, another big-type government program that doesn't seem to be received well by the folks, and so he decided to attack the folks.
Rethink your comments. Think, then speak, right? A Methodist pastor, another topic we're looking at, a Methodist pastor's love for his son could end up costing him his job. Reverend Frank Schaefer broke church rules when he presided over his son's same-sex wedding, and this was back in 2007.
Wow.
Well, now the Methodist Church put Schaefer on trial and has convicted the Pennsylvania pastor.
Trial?
Well, within the church, trial within the church.
Okay.
So it's not the same as a Salem witch trials, but it's different. It's within the church.
It's not the crucible.
It's not the crucible, but Schaefer is now awaiting what he hopes will be a lenient sentence. But here's my question, and I say this in love and really a lot of respect, because I am a United Methodist. But the motto or the mantra of the United Methodist Church is open hearts, open minds. So is the church possibly doing more harm than good to itself with this action?
Well, getting everybody, even in a denomination, to agree is like getting everybody in the education department to agree. Yeah. They're so splintered even within, within the United Methodists. And there are very conservative factions, and there are very liberal factions. I find that whole thing about condemning him sad for our culture. I don't agree with that, and I stand up for that pastor to do that. Yeah, I'm proud of him, actually.
Roman Catholic, and you see these, exactly what Gary was talking about, you see these divisions too. In every faith, you've got some people, but I think one of the big debates in the Catholic faith is about having female priests right now. So, I mean, is that going to happen sometime in the future? These debates go on as societies develop. It's just going to happen.
Well, so maybe if he gets kicked out, maybe he'll find a home in another denomination.
Perhaps.
Well,
maybe start his own. Maybe.
You extend an olive branch, you don't kick out.
Right.
You extend an olive branch and
you work it out.
Graciousness and kindness.
You work it out.
And you listen. And, you know, we know so much in our culture, especially in religion, about what we're against, but we rarely know what we're for. And that's a good example of that.
Yeah, good point.
They know what they're against.
Okay. Have you skipped a vacation this year?
Never.
The clock is ticking
Vacation.
if you have to use up your vacation days by the end of the year. The travel website Expedia.com found that the average American, guys, does this happen to you? The average American will lose 4 vacation days this year just because he or she didn't take it. And that's up 2 more days from last year.
Okay.
And the reasons people give for not using the days range from not being able to afford a vacation to finding it difficult to get a vacation scheduled. But 8% of the folks said it's their own fault their vacation days went unused because they felt that an absence from their job might work against them. Which reminds me, I'm out of here for the next week, so.
Yeah, nice.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Really, though, have you ever just not taken a vacation, Chris?
Yes.
Why?
Because we've worked I've worked in an environment, I'm sure you guys have too,
I've done it in the past.
where the boss doesn't come out and say, you shouldn't take a vacation, but it's really highly emphasized that maybe you ought not. And I've left vacation. I don't do it anymore. But back when I was a little younger and not as savvy, I've left vacation days on the table.
But even in that story, that's the whole example of, well, I don't want my boss to get the wrong idea of me, so I'm going to suck it up and not take it.
Right.
But your family has a part of that.
Exactly.
Staying home is a good thing, even on vacation.
Staycation.
You don't have to, book a vacation.
And to all you young men and women out there, your boss doesn't sit at home on his vacation and think about how you're staying on the job and slugging it away. He doesn't think about it.
He doesn't?
So, no, he doesn't. So you take your vacations.
Right.
Take your vacations, absolutely.
Re-energize.
Well, I was in the situation where I would take a vacation, but it was always after, 10 other people got to pick their vacation days, and then I took the breadcrumbs after.
So you were left the hottest days in August.
Guys, hurry up and pick your vacation.
Chris, I'm doing it right
so
now.
that I can pick mine after yours. Okay. Today's Daily Viewpoint, Oprah Winfrey again in the hot seat making headlines.
Oprah.
She says President Obama has been the victim of racism. And she made these comments in a provocative interview with the BBC. Oprah even went as far as to say that the issue of racism is a generational one. She did acknowledge the progress that's been made in race relations over the years. When the Texas Daily continues, we're diving right into that topic, so stick around. You're watching the Texas Daily, and we're coming right back. All right, tonight's Daily Viewpoint, welcome back. Oprah, not one who's ever shied away from a controversy herself. She's used to being in the limelight for various reasons, but she made some very pointed comments about racism in America recently. During an interview with the BBC, you see it here, Oprah said she thinks President Obama has been the victim of racism by and large. She pointed to a 2009 speech during which Republican Congressman Joe Wilson called Obama a liar. Oprah went on to say that racism is largely a generational issue, she believes. She did acknowledge that the country has made great strides in race relations recently, but she said prejudice will largely die as the older generation of Americans dies off.
So what's so controversial about her comments?
That the setbacks, perhaps, that our president is suffering, or the problems within his administration, are largely due to an maybe generational attitude of racism.
But I don't think that's what she said. I think she said, does he as an African-American president suffer from, is there racism against our president? And I would say that's true in our culture. We all know certain people in our culture who are racist. And we encounter them from time to time. So that statement.
So you don't interpret her remarks as indicating that the political attacks.
The problems within the administration, I don't think, are because of racism.
You don't think he's being attacked politically more so because of
I don't know.
racism?
You'd have to take every individual and look at him.
I saw the interview with the BBC.
What do you think?
and they were asking about the context of the administration. Do you think the reason why he's having such a tough time, so much opposition to his policies, Obamacare, the way he's handled foreign policy, his plummeting poll numbers, is that all race-based? Is it because he's the first black president? And then to which Oprah said, yeah, she thinks that that's a component. And she didn't actually come and say that. She didn't say it was the bulk, but she says that it's a component. There are folks out there who say that it's the driving force of his unpopularity. And that just,
I can't go there.
To me, it's just inane, because by using that same standard, I mean, look at all the things that one of our senators here from Texas, Ted Cruz, has been called all manner of defamatory comments from the left.
Sure.
So utilizing that same standard, then you could say those people were racist against Ted Cruz. Criticism is criticism, and race ought not factor into it.
It should be based on the policy.
Deal with the merits.
The agenda.
For goodness sake.
You know, one of our good friends, Gary and I don't know if you had the pleasure of meeting him or working with him, but Gary Reeves was a good friend of mine.
The great
Gary Reeves. Very talented journalist for years and years at CBS and then also at Channel 8. And he and I, we had desks near one another for years, and we had many discussions. And in one of them, he was talking about racism, and he said, you know, the problem in this country, he's African American, and he said the problem in this country is that black people, his words, we talk too much about racism. It's at the forefront all the time. The rest of you guys don't talk about it enough. And he said that's the disparity there. And we see it from two different perspectives, and it's hard to meet in the middle.
Well, so most of the time, truth is somewhere in the middle.
Exactly.
It's somewhere in the moderation of a little bit of here and a little bit of there.
To say that President Obama, you know, a man of this generation, growing up where he did, when he did, that he has ever been subjected to racism? Absolutely. He's bound to have. But to, you know, the other end of the spectrum is that the bulk of his problems, his political problems, and the poll numbers are due to racism. I think that's a stretch.
Yeah, I think it's a big stretch.
And it also is indicting on the folks who have lost favor with the administration, i.e. on the rollout of Obamacare, to insinuate that all of these people, and the polls now are decidedly negative, on government in general. I was just showing you a poll earlier. This was off the air, a Gallup poll basically saying that opinion about whether or not government should be handling health care in this country has flipped on its ear.
In what, about 6 years?
Yeah, in about 6 years, since the rollout of Obamacare, and now it's 56 to 42 opposed to basically because folks have witnessed the ham-handed handling of the Obamacare rollout. And to sit there and say that those people who have flipped positions, oh, you're just doing that out of racism, that is really insulting to the people who are looking at the issue and saying, my goodness, this is not an indictment on somebody's race, it's an indictment on government's handling.
And also,
things.
I think that survey and that poll, if the rollout of government health care succeeds at some point, that poll will change. You know, they always do that poll in the middle of the heat of what's awful
to
going
show
on
the
right
most
now.
dramatic change.
And of course, I look at those polls and go, oh, of course.
Yeah,
you know, but
makes sense.
As it works itself out. Yeah. Interesting.
Okay, a follow-up question, then a footnote to this.
Yeah.
Do you believe that come January, let's pick a date, January 15th, that the website will be resurrected, it'll be back on its feet, and people will be enrolling at the numbers first projected
we moved
by...
it to January 15th.
I know, I thought it was November 30th. That was
I'm giving it a wide berth.
No,
I
would say no, and I think you need a wider berth than that. I think half of the brilliant minds in this country couldn't figure out the internet, so let alone the government. But I think they'll eventually do that. I think they'll eventually
somewhere.
do that.
Years.
Yeah,
somewhere do it. Well, I don't know if it's years. It better not be.
It was Jon Stewart who said it on the Daily Show that in President Obama's defense, when he said it would be ready by the end of November, he didn't say which November.
Which year, that's right.
So there you go.
All right. Well, you've heard what we think. Now you can contribute to the conversation. You can add your comments on our Facebook page. You can tweet us or email us. And if you couldn't put down Game Change 2012, the book, listen up. When the Texas Daily returns, you're going to be very excited to know we're chatting with one of the authors of that book about the new book, Double Down, and it's got just as many shocking revelations as Game Change. We're going to have that conversation coming up next. Stay here. You're watching the Texas Daily. Welcome back. The authors of Game Change 2012 are at it again. This time, the duo who chronicled the 2008 presidential election, Take aim at Mitt Romney in the sequel. This is it, Double Down, currently #3. Is that right, on the New York Times bestseller list?
Yeah, #3 in the hardcover.
Currently number 3.
#1 on ebooks.
And #1 on ebooks.
#1 on ebooks.
And so joining us now to discuss the book and everything that's in it and what went into the book, also MSNBC political analyst, John Heilemann.
Yeah.
John, thanks for joining
Good
us.
to have you on the show.
It's awesome to be here amidst this incredible collection of political brilliance.
Yes.
I'm sure it's the highlight of your hour.
I have not encountered this much political brilliance at one table since Bill Clinton died alone.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
Teen Idol.
Okay, so let's jump right
You
into
wanna go
it.
first?
Okay,
Yeah,
let's go.
first question is,
All right.
what is the most surprising thing that you saw, that you were witness to, that you were able to include in the book about this campaign?
Boy, that's a big question. You know, there's a scene in the book relatively late, actually at the very beginning of the book and the very end of the book, with President Obama struggling after the first debate, struggling to get ready for the second debate, and having a kind of epic performance collapse in front of his advisors on the 48 hours before the second debate, where they have to sort of pull him aside and have what they called an intervention with him, where they sat down and said, you know, it's one thing to screw up one debate, you can't really screw up two. If you screw up this next debate, you could lose the election. What's going on? And he has this incredible soliloquy where he talks about, you know, it's like an existential crisis. He's talking about, this is a guy who's like one of the great political performers of all time, and he's basically saying, I don't really know if I can do this. I'm not wired for these kind of events. This is theatrical, it's BS, I don't really want to do this. I don't really feel like I have a second-term agenda to talk about. He's just like in a state of almost total breakdown. And it's just a picture of the president that is not one that people are very familiar with, having a crisis of confidence, and it's one that shows certain things about the way he thinks about politics, things he doesn't like about it, how he thinks about himself and his role in politics that are kind of really relevant to today, too, that give you a sense of some of the problems he's having currently.
Tell me about the vetting of Chris Christie by the Romney camp. What was that whole process
It was eventful.
like? You think?
Wow. It was eventful. You know, Governor Romney thought that he might want to make Chris Christie his vice presidential nominee, and when his team of vetters, that's what happens when you go through the vice presidential process, they look into your background, they do this kind of political colonoscopy, and they look in, and that's exactly the right reaction.
And for him too, you know.
And he was not very. First of all, he agreed to be vetted, and then didn't really actively participate, which is something Mark and I have never really seen that happen before. Usually, if you say you're going to go forward, you then give over all the material they ask for. He wouldn't do that, including giving them all of his health records, which raised some questions for the vetters. But they also found all this stuff that was in the public record, in the strict sense of public record. Like if I gave you the right Google terms, you could find this stuff. But almost no one knows about it, and it's stuff that's happened with him in his career in New Jersey. Like, I bet none of you guys know that he was a lobbyist, right?
I knew that.
Chris Christie was a lobbyist. So for a period of time when he was a lobbyist, one of his clients was the Securities Industry Association of America. And the Securities Industry Association was trying to get financial fraud exempted from the New Jersey State Consumer Protection Law. The guy who was the head of the SIA at that time was Bernie Madoff. Now, and I mean, yes, that Bernie Madoff, not a different Bernie Madoff, the same Bernie Madoff.
That's just 1 degree.
So, yes, and so, you know, Romney's people rightfully sort of said, well, there might be an explanation for this, but, you know, Mitt Romney, with all of his Wall Street connections, like having your vice president be called Bernie Madoff's lobbyist would be kind of a problem.
The ads write themselves, don't they?
The ad, 30-second ad, that's exactly what they said.
Yeah.
And so there were a lot of things like that. There were, you know, a dozen things that were kind of things that, and people around Governor Romney said, well, all this stuff's been discussed in New Jersey, and Governor Romney, displaying relatively rare political good sense, said, in New Jersey, that's not the same as national. If you're on the national ticket, if you're a vice presidential nominee or a presidential nominee, it's a whole different level of scrutiny. This stuff is, nobody knows about this. And so in the end, when he looked at a lot of the excerpts from the full vetting report of what they did on Christie. They raised all these issues. Romney looked at it and said, I can't put this guy on the ticket, and went for Paul Ryan instead.
You know, they're both connected to Kevin Bacon because he lost a lot of money in that Bernie Madoff thing. Kevin Bacon was one of them.
Kevin Bacon game.
Proving the degrees of separation, the Bacon game.
I can't get over the video.
And by the way, I just want to tell you, I love bacon. Just to be clear. I don't mean Kevin Bacon, I mean bacon.
Real bacon.
Well,
we all
bacon,
like
baby.
this show, it goes with everything.
It's Texas.
So the video of Romney when he made the big comment, the percentage comment, to me was the downfall of everything for him. It was the start of the turn for him. It just seemed like it was so disingenuous to everyone else other than who he wanted to include.
Well, you know, that video, it was something he said in May, but no one knew about it until September. So the reason it was so damaging was that the Obama campaign had spent the whole summer attacking him as being an out-of-touch plutocrat, right? That was that's all they did, is advertise all summer long. Bane, he was refusal to share his income tax returns. He was, Gordon Gekko meets Mr. Magoo, right? That was the image they wanted to paint of him. So to now have a video that came out that was, in his own words, reinforcing the frame that the other side had built for him, it was not so much the beginning of the end, it was kind of like the last nail in the coffin, right? It was for a lot of working class and middle class voters in swing states in places like Ohio and Wisconsin. They'd been hearing all summer long about this guy being like that.
But to see that video, we didn't see that video.
That's absolutely right. That's what I mean. So it's in his own words.
It's like playing the ace card.
And we reported in the book, President Obama, when they first showed it to him, he was at a campaign event in Cleveland, and his senior advisor, David Plouffe, put it on his iPhone and said, here, look at this video. And the video is really key, because audio is, in this world that we live in now, audio is one thing, but video, secret video, is just irresistible. It's like catnip on the internet, right? Everyone wants to see it. So they showed it to Obama, and he looked at it, and he, again, rightly, he looked at it and he said it's going to be hard for him to say that he just misspoke, because it's a fully formed thought that he's expressing. It's like, that's what he genuinely believes. He's not going to be able to walk away from it. His team still thought at least that he would apologize, right? That he'd go on TV and say, I'm really sorry, I make up some kind of thing, right? Then he didn't do that. He didn't apologize. And one of the things that we report in the book that's so fascinating is that the reason he didn't apologize, and this was true in a number of different instances in the campaign, was the fact that he'd written this book back in 2010, which we'll talk about in a minute. He wrote about this book called No Apology. And his attitude was, I'm the guy who wrote the book called No Apology. I can't apologize for anything because they'll say I'm a hypocrite.
Can you come back tomorrow and tell us that story? Can you do that?
So it's a simple story. The quick story is that No Apology was the book that displaced Game Change from the #1 slot in the New York Times bestseller list in 2010. We don't hold a grudge.
We're going to talk about this book.
That's a fact.
This book is Double Down.
Fantastic.
It's on store shelves right now. You can find it wherever fine books are sold, at your favorite bookstore. John, thank you so much for coming in. It's been a real pleasure.
I can't believe we didn't talk about Rick Perry, but that's okay.
I know.
Great to see you guys.
We're going to have to have you back for that.
I'd love to do it. You guys are awesome. Thank you very much.
We're coming right back after this. Stay here.